let's talk about one of the most fundamental skills for getting anything done: planning. You know, it's kind of like an architect's blueprint. Without one, you might have a pile of bricks, but you're definitely not going to have a skyscraper. A solid plan is the foundation for everything that comes next.
So, let me ask you this. Are you leaving your success up to chance? Because without a plan, that's kind of what you're doing. It's the difference between just being busy and being productive, between random motion and actually moving towards a destination you've chosen. A plan gives you that purpose.
So here's our game plan for this explainer. We're going to start with the why, the absolute foundation of planning. Then we'll get super practical with a 5-step process you can use for pretty much any goal. After that, we'll look at how plans are structured in a hierarchy, from the big picture vision down to the daily tasks. And finally, we'll open up the Planner's Toolkit and check out the specific tools managers use to make it all happen.
All right, let's start at the beginning, with the foundation, the why. Why is planning such a big deal in management? Well, think about it. Without a plan, everything else, organizing, leading, controlling, it's all just motion without any real progress. The plan is what gives every other action its direction and its purpose.
At its heart, planning is actually a pretty simple 2-part deal. First, you figure out what you want to achieve. That's your objective. And then you map out how you're going to get there. That's your course of action. It's really just the discipline of making tomorrow's decisions today.
Now, this split between the what and the how is absolutely critical. Your what is your destination. It has to be a specific, measurable result. Something like increase sales by 10%. The how, well, that's your roadmap to get there. To hit that sales goal, your how might be something like increase our advertising budget by 20%. You see, without that clear destination, any road will get you somewhere, but it probably won't be where you wanted to go. And the payoff for doing this work up front? Oh, it's huge. Planning gives everyone a shared direction, right? It turns a bunch of individual efforts into one powerful collective push. It also gives you a framework for making decisions, helping you spot opportunities and dodge threats before they become big problems. And maybe most importantly, it gives you a yardstick to measure your own success.
And that brings us to this really key idea, that planning and controlling are the Siamese twins of management. I love that quote. It basically means you can't control what you haven't planned for. Your plan sets the standard, and then the control part is just measuring how you're doing against that standard. They are totally inseparable. One without the other just doesn't work.
Okay, so now that we've got the why down, let's dive into the how. This is the 5-step planning process, and it's like a universal blueprint you can use to create any plan for any goal you can think of. Okay, here are the 5 steps. It all starts with setting a clear objective. You got to know exactly where you're headed. Then you develop forecasts and premises, which is really just a fancy way of saying you look down the road and make some educated guesses about what's coming. Next, you figure out your alternatives, brainstorming different ways to get there. After that, you evaluate those alternatives, weighing the pros and cons of each route. And finally, you pick the best plan and you implement it. You put the car in gear and start driving.
Step 1 is the absolute linchpin of this whole thing. Setting that objective defines your destination. It answers that one big question: where do we want to be when this is all over? If you don't have a crystal clear answer to that, all your other planning efforts are just going to be lost at sea. This is the anchor for your entire plan. So how do you set a good objective? Well, you make it SMART. This is such a powerful acronym. It ensures your goals are specific, not just get better at social media, but increase Instagram comments by 15%. Measurable, so you actually know if you're winning. Attainable, because setting impossible goals just crushes morale. Relevant to your bigger mission. And timely, with a clear deadline to create a bit of urgency and focus.
A SMART objective is an awesome start. But how does one big goal actually get put into action across an entire organization? Well, that's where the hierarchy of plans comes into play. Think about our architect again. You've got the grand, beautiful vision for the whole skyscraper, but you also need detailed floor plans for every single level, right?
The secret sauce here is that all the plans have to be connected, kind of like a pyramid. The big goal at the top cascades down, and each department creates its own plans that support the one above it. This is what keeps everyone aligned. It ensures the marketing team's plan to launch a new product syncs up perfectly with the manufacturing team's production schedule. Everybody is rowing in the exact same direction. And here's what that hierarchy looks like in practice.
At the very top, you've got strategic plans. These are the big, long-term, 3 to 5 year visions for the company. Then, middle management creates tactical plans, which translate that big strategy into 1 to 2 year goals for their specific departments. And down at the base, you have first-line managers creating operational plans, the daily, weekly, and monthly actions that actually bring that whole strategy to life on the ground.
Okay, so we've got our process, we have our hierarchy. Let's get into our final section, the planner's toolkit. These are the specific, tangible tools that managers use every day to execute their plans and turn those big objectives into reality. The tools in this kit basically fall into 2 big buckets. You've got single-use plans, which are for unique one-off projects, like launching a brand new product. Once you've launched it, you're done with the plan. On the other hand, you have standing plans. These are for situations that come up over and over again, and they're designed to make decisions consistent and routine. To make this crystal clear, let's walk through a really practical example. Let's say a company wants to make sure everyone is behaving ethically. They would use 3 types of standing plans that all work together: a policy, a rule, and a procedure. Let's see how they fit.
Okay, first up is the policy. This is the broad framework, the general guide. It sets the overall tone and expectation without getting bogged down in the tiny details. In our example, the policy is simple. All employees are expected to behave ethically. It's the North Star.
Now, to support that policy, you need a rule. A rule is not a suggestion. It's a very specific required action. It makes that broad policy really concrete. So, in this case, the rule might be, you must report any gift from a supplier worth more than $50. See? It's black and white, no gray area. And finally, we have the procedure. This tells you the exact how-to. It lays out the precise steps for following the rule. For reporting that gift, the procedure might be, submit a written disclosure form to your manager within 30 days. See how they all lock together? The policy gives you the why, the rule gives you the what, and the procedure gives you the how. So there you have it. We've gone through the why, the how, and the what of the architect's blueprint for planning. It's an incredibly powerful process for turning that feeling of uncertainty into clear action and turning chance into intention. You have the blueprint now, so the only question left is, what's the first step you're going to plan today?